What's up, guys? I just wanted to come on and talk about something that I thought was pretty interesting because I've been seeing it nonstop on my Reddit, like nonstop, day in, day night, is the multiverse shutdown. Because a lot of people don't seem to understand what really happened there. And I think it's really interesting to talk about as well. Multiverses, if you haven't heard, was like the Super Smash Bros. Like kind of competition. It was going to be like the game, that was more accessible. You get it on PC, you could get it on everything, right? So that's like theoretically, that's a game franchise that should grab the audience Smash Bros. Has, but expand it and become a bigger franchise. Theoretically, I mean, Smash Bros. Is always going to be Smash Bros. And on top. The range of characters and IPs, like it was the Warner Brothers like IP collective that was underneath, the game, the multiverses, and they fumbled it hard. They had Batman, Superman, Shaggy, like Shaggy uses 1% of his power, like you got that stuff. Bugs Bunny. They had so many characters. Like they had Agent Smith at one point, which apparently he was part of the problem because which we'll get into in a minute, I guess. But they had so many IPs and it failed. So this was a game that when it first came out, in its first test, which I believe was 2023. Once again, don't quote me on this. Sorry, I had to fact check because I thought it was 2023. I was completely wrong. It was actually 2022. Multiversus actually first came out in 2022. And when this came out, everyone was hyping on it. Everyone was on the game, right? For some reason, there's something like, I'm not going to say like, oh, I was right about this, but there's something neg on me. It was like, I usually don't get the feeling of like, oh, people said about Fall Guys, Among Us and all that. I was like, oh, this game's going to die in a week. I didn't get that feeling, but I got the feeling of this game wasn't going to last because for some reason, it has everything that should make it last, but I wasn't feeling it. There's something off about it. I had friends getting on it. I was like, I don't want to get it. And I said I wasn't going to get it and I didn't. So apparently what happened was, at least for what we're seeing from statistics, is they had a massive jump in players. And over time, it just fell off and declined. And it fell off pretty hard. And this was during the first beta, too. So it was really good. People were enjoying it. People enjoyed the beta, apparently, more than the main release. Once again, I didn't actually get my hands on this on my own console or PC. I have played it at a friend's. But this is why I find it very curious, because I have a few friends that play this, and they're devastated, and they don't understand why it has gone down. So it basically, it skyrocketed during the beta. Everyone loved it. And then it started to drop. And I think this was a marketing strategy, because the second it dropped in the first beta, like it got cut off and it's like it got re-released, I think, to artificially bump the numbers back up. They made changes, obviously, but I believe personally, from what I've been like seeing, is it was a 2-part release plan, so they could bump the numbers up where it was more than just a test phase, and then when it comes out again, it gets a free bump again. It's gonna go shooting right up because everyone's gonna be like, okay, let's try this out. The problem with it is it did die over time because they had a good release of characters at the start. They're releasing characters right off the bat. They had stuff going on the first bit. There's problems with it though. Like getting Smith apparently took like 2 weeks of grinding or something ridiculous. Like it was like you couldn't even, like, if you wanted him, like you can get him like 2 weeks early or whatever. But it was like insane grinding, and then you couldn't buy him until the day he came out. But if you wanted him early, like you had to put like your, it was like a 9 to 5 on that shit. Obviously, people weren't fond of it. People, like, I heard multiple videos and people talking about how they weren't fond of it. People coming to my Twitch chat to cite it like this same issues. Which I get, right? It's too much grinding. It's like Star Wars Battlefront 2. There's too much grinding. You gotta nerf that down. You gotta cut it in half, cut it more, whatever. But I think they like blew their load like right away because there's nothing left. It's like, it's like Multiverse is like your husband, and you're like waking them up, like, hey, let's go for round 2. They ain't getting up. The character drop off just completely stopped. Players were dwindling, and there's no response, no real answer. And it kind of just left, the sight of, majority of the gaming community. Like, I forgot Multiverses existed for like a month, actually. And now it has died off. It has been confirmed it's going to be canceled, cut off, and you won't be able to buy a story. If you have it already, if you buy it, you can play it offline. Once again, don't get this thing at this point. It's basically a dead game. But you can play it offline, but the multiplayer servers are going to go offline forever. And this comes at the same time as EA saying, oh, Dragon Age of Elgar has failed because it wasn't a live service. Like, a little off topic, but EA, have you looked around the corner? There's Multiverses right there, which has every right to succeed more than Dragon Age. Sorry, Dragon Age fans. It has every right more to succeed than Dragon Age because of all the IPs with it, and it dropped. Like, what are you doing? Like, once again, low off topic, Suicide Squad, all the other games that have dropped off and failed, Concord, and you look at Multiverses, which is another, like, the most recent example, failed. And I think this one was not actually because it was a live service. People wanted a competitor for Smash Bros. Something that was accessible. You could load up on PC, right? Like Nintendo has been gatekeeping their games, which is fair. Their console, they have every right to do so. I do think they'd make a lot of money if like they put a warranty, like Sony does, like after a game's like a year old, they can drop it to PC. That's a good strategy, easy money. Nintendo can make easy money just doing that, and if they want to be more strict, after every 3 years, we'll drop something this new game on PC. Like they can delay it, but they don't want the money, whatever. But this would have been, competition Smash Bros. People like me who don't typically buy Nintendo products would have a version to play. And there's always a nagging feeling there, and it just didn't work. And this isn't an issue of like, oh, it was a live service. Problems with the live service, but that's just how the game had to be. It was a lack of balancing, a lack of, insight into what the game community wanted, because they had all the characters, they had everything they would need, but they blew their load in the first bit, and then they had no content to drop, and everyone was leaving because there was a lot of balancing issues, bugs. It didn't feel like much of a fighting game, and there's just no response. It's insane, because this is an IP that should have easily thrived, and it just didn't. It couldn't survive the landscape that its developers put through, and like in a perfect timeline, we would be standing here in 3 years saying, man, I love Multiverses. Like, it's good now, but it was really good in 2016 or whatever. Like you get the Overwatch treatment. Like Overwatch had in like 2019, we were still kind of favorably looked upon somewhat, but ultimately didn't pan out. And I just want to talk about this because I had a lot of people that misunderstand it, and they're curious why people fell off. And I don't think it was because of it just being a live service. Plainly, this had a lot of issues, and it's really starting news to hear, because I like to stream a lot of games, so I never got to it because I had people that wanted me to play other games first. But I wanted to play, especially recently, because I've gone to Tekken. I know it's not the exact same for all the fighting game fans, but I've recently gone to Tekken. I've been dipping my toes into Street Fighter. I'm currently working on Street Fighter 4, and I've been enjoying a lot of fighting games, and I don't have Nintendo access, and I thought it'd be really cool to play Multiverses, which is why it's so disheartening to hear the news, because now I think at this point, it's not going to be something I pick up, even though I've tried it very briefly at a friend's, and honestly, it's just really sad news. There's been a lot of live service fails in the past 2 years, which you could say, oh, that's good. They're going to go more single player. All it takes is one single player game for the EA dev or whatever dev to go, CEO to go, oh, that doesn't work. Back to live service. You know what I mean? Like Sony apparently canceled like 5 live services behind the scenes that we never even saw. Like people root on the downfall of live services. I don't think that is the right course of action. There is some live services like even Marvel Rivals, which does it right? Once again, especially when you see the potential this game had, I think it's a real shame that it died off so quickly, because I want to dip my toes back in. And I just wanted to just kind of discuss it and just get other people's thoughts on it. Like this isn't like I'm happy about this. I'm like really sad about this. I'm very conflicted about this because it was mishandled, and I think we've had enough of developers mishandling games at the start and then building it back up over time. But I would have loved to last long enough for me to get my hands on it. It's my own doing because I didn't trust it, but I should have at least jumped in and tried it a little bit, have fun. There's some big creators like Angry Joe that dropped like $100, and they ain't gonna see that money again. My money may have went into something like Honey Pop too, but didn't. At least I got at my my enjoyment. But that's all I really wanted to talk about. Just quickly to discuss that. I might do a bit more breakdown videos because I want to talk about stuff pre-stream, because I forget about it while I'm on stream. I'll think about it like an hour before, and then I forget to discuss it. Or no one really wants to like add to the conversation. So I want to get my thoughts out so it's out of me. I don't bring up something no one cares about on stream. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about Multiverses. I want to know what you guys thought of Multiverses and what you think of what happened to it, why it failed. And if you ever think, we're going to get an actual fighting game with, a bunch of IPs that can actually rival Smash Bros. I personally don't see it anytime soon, if ever happening. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think. Anyway, thank you. This was just a nice quick chat. Never do these. But I might try to do more of them just because I like to talk, and this allows me to clear some stuff up while it's on my mind before stream, because once I'm on stream, I forget everything I was going to say. Anyway, I'll see you guys on stream. Adios.